الحمد لله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، قال سبحانه وتعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال سبحانه وتعالى: نبئ عبادي أني أنا الغفور الرحيم وأن عذابي هو العذاب الأليم. وقال جل وعلا: قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Respected ulama, my respected elders, my brothers, my little ones, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After praising the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations on Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I begin as always by first thanking you, my host, for giving me this opportunity to convey the message of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I pray to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah accepts these efforts of yours in listening to this message, as I pray to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah accepts these efforts of mine on this blessed day in trying to deliver the message of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My young friends, for every illness in this world, cancer, meningitis, diabetes, for every illness there is in this world, there is also a cure. Whether we know of the cure or not, whether we have discovered the cure, this, my young friends, is entirely a different thing. But one thing is for certain, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لِكُلِّ دَاءٍ Dawah. Every illness that Allah placed inside this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also placed the cure for that particular illness. Whether this illness is of a spiritual nature, jealousy, greed, hatred, backbiting, pride, arrogance, abusing, swearing, or whether this illness is of a non-spiritual nature, from your leg aches to your headaches to your backaches and your aches and your aches. Every illness, there's a cure. There is this one illness that we all suffer from. There's not a single human being that walks the earth at this moment in time, as I deliver this reminder and you listen to this reminder, that doesn't suffer from this illness. And this illness is of a spiritual nature. This illness, my young friend, is the illness of committing sin, the illness of neglect, the illness of going against the teaching of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the illness of not fulfilling our purpose in life. There's not a single human being at this moment in time that walks this earth to some degree that does not suffer from this illness. And the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Lord, our Master, our Creator, the Arhamul Rahimeen, the Akramul Akrameen, the Ajwadul Ajwadeen, the most merciful, the most kind, the most loving, the most embracing, the Almighty Allah, knowing that sometimes we are the creation of Allah. Allah's created us. He knows you and me better than you and I know ourselves. And because He's made us, and He knows that we are prone to commit sin, knowing that sometimes our shahwat, our desires, they will get the better of us. Sometimes our nafs, that will get the better of us. Sometimes the shaitan, man's greatest enemy, inna lil insan aduwwan mubin. He asked Allah for respite. Can Allah allow me to lead them astray till my last breath? And he works day and night trying his utmost best to lead us astray so we become inhabitants of the fire of hell. So sometimes shaitan, man's greatest enemy, he gets the better of us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing this, so merciful and so kind and so loving is our Lord, my young friends, that He did not leave us so that this illness keeps on attacking our inside like cancer. Have you seen how cancer keeps on eating away at the inside of a human being? And before you know it, he's gone. He's history. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful and the most kind, He did not leave us so that this illness keeps on eating away from within. And all of a sudden we fall flat on our faces, never ever to wake up again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Arhamul Rahimeen, my young friends, He gave us such a medication that whenever this medication and whenever this medicine is applied with its condition, my young friends, it will purify our insides till our hearts will begin to glow, and we will become just like Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, رَجَأَ كَيَوْمٍ وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ. He will be pure and free from sin, just like the day his mother gave him birth. No matter what sin you commit, no matter whether it's fornication, whether it's adultery, whether it's wining and dining, whether it's taking dope, whether it's selling dope, whether it's dealing in interest, irrespective of the sin that you've committed, and no matter how many times you may have committed this sin, even though you may have spent your last 50 years, your last 80 years committing these sins, whenever this medication is applied with its conditions, my young friend, He will purify your insides till your hearts will begin to glow, and you will return just like the day your mother gave you birth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my young friends, is waiting for you and me at this moment in time. And what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala waiting for? My friends, He is waiting for you and me to turn to Him. He's waiting now, and He will keep on waiting till our last breath. And whenever we, the sinful servants of Allah, decide now is the time to leave the razmataz of the dunya, now is the time to leave sin and disobedience, now is the time to turn to Allah, now is the time to embrace the teachings of Allah and His Rasul, now is the time to live by the book of Allah. My young friends, whenever you and I decide and we take one step in Allah's direction, one step to Allah, I swear by Allah, our Allah is so merciful and so kind and so loving, so forgiving, so accommodating, that as soon as you take that first step, irrespective of whether you have spent 80 years prior to this disobeying Him every second of the day, I swear by Allah, when you take that first step towards Allah, Allah will run and He will embrace you with His mercy. Allah will run and He will embrace you with His mercy, and He will make sure that once He's embraced you, you will return thereafter just like the day your mother gave you birth, free, pure from sin, just like a newborn. Allah is Bayniaz. He introduces Himself. You read this surah every day. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ Allah هُوَ الصَّمَدُ لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. He's Bayniaz. He needs no one. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even need people like you and me. إن يشاء يذهبكم ويأتي بخلق جديد وما ذلك على الله بعزيز. You know now, how quick was this? If Allah wants you to replace every human being that walks on this earth at this moment in time, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do this before I can even click my fingers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is totally independent. He needs no one. And when He needs no one, where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever going to be in need of our deeds? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has angels. How many angels? My young friends, there are zillions and zillions and zillions of angels. At this moment in time, prostrating before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the moment Allah created these angels, my young friends, from that moment to this moment, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. They have never disobeyed Him. From the moment He created them, there are some angels, from the moment He created them, they fell into prostration. To this day, thousands and thousands and thousands of years have passed. They have not raised their heads from prostration. There are millions of angels there glorifying Allah. There are millions of angels that perform tawaf around the house of Allah, the Baytul Ma'mur. 70,000 angels perform tawaf every day. And once they perform tawaf once, they will not get another chance right till the Day of Judgment. Where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to be in need of you and me and our good deeds? Yahya bin Aktham was a master of his time, a great scholar. After his death, my young friends, he was seen in a dream, standing before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked, "O Yahya, I gave you a life. Tell me, Yahya, today you've come to me. What did you do with the life that I gave you?" I ask you, my young friends, Is this not one of the questions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask you and I? Our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لن تزول قدم عبد حتى يسأل عن أربع عن عمره فيما أفناه وعن شبابه فيما أبلاه وعن ماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه وعن علمه ماذا عمل فيه. Every one of you, not a single soul, will move from the plane of resurrection till he has not answered 4 questions. Number 1, I advise you, my young friends, to listen to this carefully. Why? Because you're going to be there. You're going to see it with your own eyes. And you're going to have to answer this question. Number 1, An umrihi fima afna. I gave you a life. You're alive. You're here. You're sitting before me. I'm alive. This is the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. I placed you in the dunya. Some of you 50 years. Some of you 70 years. Some of you 80 years. Some of you 100 plus years. What did you do with the life that I gave you? And I want you to picture this in your mind's eye. The day of judgment. Everyone will be made to assemble. Every human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever created, from the first man to the last man. The humankind, the jinn kind, the animal kind. يحشر الناس على أرض بيضاء أفرا. It will be the greatest congregation you will ever have seen. Zillions and zillions of people, from the first man to the last man. On a day when the earth will be a flat, white plain. No mountains, no K2, no Himalayas, no Everest. You can't hide. You know, in the dunya, you may hide somewhere in some cave. But on that day, it will be a flat, white, plain. You will be visible, and there will be no place to hide. No mountains. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one verse of the Quran, Al-Qari'atu mal-Qari'a, wa ma adraka mal-Qari'a, yawma yakunu an-nas kal-farashi al-mabthuth, wa takunu al-jibalu kal-ihni al-manfush. I mean, just very recently, the Americans, a few years ago, bombarded Afghanistan. The Tora Bora, the mountains. What happened to them? What happened to the mountains? Nothing. Look at this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 21st century, the latest weapons of the time, cluster bombs, you name them. Yet in front of this creation, they were nothing. On the day of judgment, these same mountains, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in this verse of the Quran, you will see them fly like carded wool, like wool. You will see them fly, and then وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْجِبَالِ فَقُلْ يَنْسِفُهَا رَبِّي نَسْفًا فَيَذَرُهَا قَاعًا صَفْصَفًا لَا تَرَى فِيهَا عِوَجٌ وَلَا أَمْتًا. These same mountains that these great bombs had no impact on that day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make them into a zillion pieces and more. They will become dust. And it will be a flat plain, no hills, no mountains, nothing. And everyone will come out of their graves. How? وعنت الوجوه للحي القيوم وقد خاب من حمل ظلمه. You know, this dunya runs on big boys. Isn't that so? This whole dunya runs on big boys. Yeah, forget the dunya, your masjid runs on big boys. That's reality, isn't it? Masjid runs on big boys. Tribes run on big boys. Countries run on big boys. And the world runs on big boys. You know, on that day, when they resurrected, the big boys, never mind people like you and me, we'd come under, forgive me if it offends someone, we're the Charlies. We're sheep. Their heads will be bowed down. You know, when they come on that plane of resurrection and they see the arsh of Allah, وَيَحْمِلُ أَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٌ. 8 angels will be carrying the arsh of Allah. You know, at this moment in time, there are only 4 angels that carry the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these 4 angels are so big that their heads are in the 7th heaven and their feet are in the lowest earth. But on that day, my young friends, the Quran says 8 angels will carry the arsh of Allah, because Allah on that day will be angry like never before. Like never before. So much so that when you come to the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam and tears of blood are flowing from your eyes and you are begging the likes of Adam, the likes of Musa, the likes of Ibrahim, the likes of Isa, the likes of Idris, the likes of Nuh, when you are begging these Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam to help you, to intercede for you, my young friends, even though the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam are the nearest and dearest to Allah, they will turn you down and they will say, Nafsi, 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 that I can't help you today because I do not know what my outcome is going to be. And every one of them will say, Allah lam yaghdab qablahu mithlahu wa lan yaghdab ba'dahu mithlahu. Allah has never been angry like this before. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never be angry like this ever again. So much so that these very prophets will be so afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. They were free and pure from sin. They never wronged their master. When Allah will ask the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, the likes of Musa, Isa, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Mada ujibtum? What was your response? They were there. They came in the dunya. They know what their response was. They know who believed and who didn't believe. But my friends, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pose this question to the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam on that day, they will be so afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they will say, La ilma lana innaka anta allamul ghuyub. Oh Allah, we do not know. You are the knower of the seen and the unseen. And you will be raised. And when Sayyidina Israfil will make the call, standing on the Sakhra of Baytul Maqdis, all of you come towards Allah. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَّبِعُونَ الدَّاعِيَ لَا إِوَجَ لَهُ. And when he makes that call, my young friends, you will not move to the right, not even 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter. You will not move to the left 1/1,000,000 of a millimeter. You will travel towards the sound of Sayyidina Israfil alayhi salatu wasalam's voice. It's like your body's been programmed. Your heads will be lowered. You will realize on that day who's the master. And you will head towards Sayyidina Israfil alayhi salatu wassalam's voice. Jahannam will be brought on the plane of resurrection. A creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 70,000 reins it will have on that day. Ropes, reins. On each rein, there will be 70,000 angels that will be pulling and dragging Jahannam. And Jahannam will be angry on that day like never before. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be angry like never before. And when the angels bring Jahannam on the plane of resurrection, you're going to be there and you're going to see it. My young friends, every single human being, from Daddy G to people like you and me, will fall in prostration. My friends, they will fall in prostration and they will realize who the master is. They will realize who the king is. They will realize for whom the sovereignty belongs. And that is the day, my young friend, when you will come and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you this first question. I gave you a life, 50 years, 60 years, 80 years. Tell me what you did with that life. I also gave you intellect. And I was so merciful that in spite of the fact that you were from amongst my best creation, I didn't leave it to your intellect for you to work out on your own accord what your purpose in life is. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do this? Did He leave it to our own intellect to work out why Allah has placed us in the dunya? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't do this. The Arhamul Rahimin, the Akramul Akramin, the Ajwadul Ajwadeen made it so easy that He sent the Quran, and in the Quran He told you and me the purpose of our life. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. O insan, everything within this universe I created for you. The sun, the stars, the moon, the trees, the rivers, the fruits. Every single thing within this universe was for you, but you were for me. And I created you to bow down, to prostrate, to acknowledge that I'm the master. Tell me, what did you do with that life that I gave you? Tell me, my young friends, what will your answer be? Ask yourself, is there anything, can you think of your life, think backwards, 40 years, forget you, let me just give you my own example. I'm 40 plus, 10, 40. You know, if at this moment in time, if you were to ask me this question, I wouldn't have an answer. Why wouldn't I have an answer? I'll tell you why, and this is reality. This is not being humble. This is being honest, being frank, to the point. I can think over my 40 years within a minute. There's nothing worthy of mention. You know, the 40 years that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, there's nothing worthy of mention that I can say to Allah, this is what I did in my life for you. And if I don't have an answer here and now, then what answer will I have standing before the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi, when even the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, who've never wronged Allah, will say, oh Allah, we do not know what response we received. Second question, عن شبابه فيما أبلاه. I gave you youth. And what's this youth for? So you can strive, so you can sacrifice. You've got the energy. You can fast by day and you can prostrate by night. You can elevate the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah in every dark corner of the globe. You can enjoy good and you can forbid evil. This is what the youth is for. Tell me, what did you do with your youth? What are you going to say, my young friend? What will you say? Me bad boy, you know. Is that what you will say to Allah? Third question. وَأَنْ مَالِهِ مِنْ أَيْنَ اكْتَسَبَهُ وَفِيمَا أَنْفَقَهُ. Your source of income. Where you got it from and where you spent it. And your fourth question. وَأَنْ عِلْمِهِ, with regards to his knowledge and whether and how you acted upon the knowledge that you possessed. So Yahya ibn Aktham, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he was a master of his time, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked this question, Yahya, I gave you a life. What did you do with that life? He said to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, every year, happy that he was an obedient servant, a good believer, a good Muslim, spent his life in obedience. He turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said, Oh Allah, every year I would come to your sacred house. Every year I would visit your sacred house in Makkatul Mukarramah. I would make tawaf around your house. On the 8th of Zil Hijjah, I would assume ihram for Hajj. I would make my way to Mina. I would spend the day and night in Mina, worshipping you and remembering you. Oh Allah, from Mina, I would proceed to Arafat. And I would spend the entire day standing before you and begging for your mercy. Oh Allah, from Arafat, I would then go to Muzdalifah. And I would spend the night in Muzdalifah. And then I would make waquf in the morning. From Muzdalifah, oh Allah, I would go to Mina. And I would pelt the shaitan. I would sacrifice. I would shave my head. Then I would go to Makkah to perform Tawafi Ziyarat. And then from performing Tawafi Ziyarat, I would return to Mina and spend the remaining days of Hajj there. And after this, I would come back to Makkah and perform Tawaful Wida. And from there, I would go to Madinatul Munawwara to visit the blessed grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and convey my salam to your beloved Habib. Oh Allah, I did this for you year in, year out. So much so that I did this for 55 years of my life. And today I am offering 55 Hajj which I performed in the dunya to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn around and say to Yahya ibn Aktham, Oh Yahya, don't you think I know of the Hajj that you performed in the dunya? Never mind 55 Hajj. Never mind 15 Hajj. Never mind 5 Hajj. You may have performed them. There's not a single Hajj which you performed in the dunya that I ever accepted. Not a single Hajj that I accepted. Tell me, Yahya, what have you brought for me? What did you do in your life? And this time Yahya ibn Aktham will mention, Inna Qur'an al-Fajr kana mashhuda. The recitation of the Qur'an at the time of Fajr Salah is a time when even the angels are present. He'll make a mention of his recitation, Ki Allah, I would open your glorious book and I would read your blessed book and ponder over its meanings. Oh Allah, I would do this by day and I would do this by night and I would do this week in and week out till my last breath. So much so, Allah, that I finished the Quran over 152 times. And today, if you haven't accepted my Hajj, wallah, I'm offering 152 recitations of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, O Yahya, indeed, you will recite the Quran by the morning and you will recite the Quran by the evening. Never mind 152 recitations. Never mind one recitation. Never mind the recitation of one line. There is not a single letter which you recited that I accepted. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still asking the same question. Tell me, Yahya, I gave you 80 years, I gave you 90 years of life. What did you do with that life? He will now make a mention of his prayer. 5 daily prayers, O Allah, I would offer Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. O Allah, not only the salawat that you had made compulsory upon me, O Allah, even those which you did not make compulsory upon me, from the Ishraq in the morning after sunrise, then the Duha Salah at forenoon, O Allah, the Awwabeen after Maghrib, O Allah, then during the night, waking up for tahajjud and standing before you hours on end, O Allah, I offered hundreds and hundreds and thousands of prayers. O Allah, I'm offering every prayer that I prayed in the dunya, I'm offering it to you today. He will offer, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will sing the same tune. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yet again will say to him, O Yahya, there's not a single prayer that I accepted. Tell me, what did you do with the life that I gave you? Now my friends, Yahya ibn Aktham will sweat. And he will start making a mention of all the deeds that he could remember doing in the dunya. From elevating the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, performing umrah, doing dhikr, sending salutation on Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, going out in tabligh, respecting his mother and father, staying in their service, teaching the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, answering the questions of people. One by one, he will make a mention of every deed that he can think of. And every time he makes a mention of his deed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say the same thing. Yahya, fine, you did it. Well, there's not a single deed that I accepted. Tell me, what did you do with your life? Now my friends, when he realizes that he's got nothing left, when he realized that he's got nothing left, everything that he did, and this is an obedient slave, he's offered Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Yahya, there's not a single thing that I've accepted. He'll turn round to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, O Allah, O Allah, I have come with nothing, and there is nothing that I can offer you, O my master, other than the fact that I have come in hope of your mercy and your kindness and your love. And today, O Allah, as I stand before you, I submit myself to your mercy, to your kindness, and to your love. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O Yahya, now you've said the right thing. وَجَبَدْ لَكَ رَحْمَتِي, my mercy has become wajib for you. Go, your abode is paradise. In another weak tradition, there was a man from amongst the Bani Israel who spent 200 years of his life committing sin. I'm sure you're aware that the people before us, their lifespan was a lot longer than ours. As Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam conveyed the message for 950 years. So this individual from amongst the Bani Israel 200 years of his life, he's disobeyed the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi. So much so that when he died, people, because they were so fed up with this individual, my young friends, they rejoiced and celebrated his death. Ki Allah tera lakh lakh shukriya, oh Allah, millions of thanks to you that today you have rid us of the evil of this individual. People were expressing thanks. People were celebrating that Allah has saved us from the evil of this individual. What type of a human being do you think this individual was? And rather than burying him, they took his body and threw it at some rubbish tip. Meanwhile, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, "O Musa, a friend of mine has died. And the enemy of Allah have been unjust. Rather than burying him, they have dumped his body next to this rubbish tip. Musa, you go, prepare for his janazah, offer his janazah." Now, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, a Nabi of the time, a great Nabi of Allah. And when Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam got there and saw this individual, that this is the same guy that whenever he was invited to Allah and the teachings of Allah, he would become deaf and blind to the teachings of Allah and Rasulullah, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. And Allah is telling me, the Nabi of the time, to offer his janazah and to take care of his kafan dafan. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam did as he was told. And he buried him. And after carrying out the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam asked, "O Allah, this is the same individual who was invited to your teachings day in, day out for years on end. And he would become deaf and blind to your teachings. And he would commit sin. And today, O Allah, you have honored him in this manner, that you have asked the Nabi of the time to offer his janazah and to bury him." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Oh indeed, O Musa, you're right. Indeed, this individual was worthy that I punished him for years on end. But O Musa, there's one thing that I know of him which you do not know. And that is, O Musa, only on one occasion he opened the Torah, the book which revealed to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And Musa, he opened it on the page on which the name of my beloved Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was written. And he kissed that page with love. That deed of his was so pleasing to me that I overlooked 200 years of sin, and I made him from amongst my friends." I said to you, my young friends, Allahu Samad, He's Beniyaz. He needs nothing. We need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This entire universe, my young friends, it runs on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything within this universe, if you were to ponder over the signs of Allah and the nizam of Allah, of how everything works, and for how every single thing within this universe, from the fish that live in the bottom of the ocean to the birds that fly high in the sky, for how Allah has made this nizam, you will come to this conclusion that it runs on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are all in need of this mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As it is only through the mercy of Allah, and I want you to listen to this very, very carefully. Only through the mercy of Allah, you and me, we can save ourselves from the fire of hell. And it is only through the mercy of Allah that we can become the inheritors of paradise. I swear by Allah, even if you and I, from the moment we were born till we died, from our first breath to our last breath, We never wronged Allah. We never disobeyed Allah. From the moment we were born till our last moment, we spent our entire life worshipping Allah. We spend our entire life in prostration. We spend our entire life making dhikr. We spend our entire life elevating the kalima la ilaha illallah. We spend our entire life enjoining good and forbidding evil. My young friends, even then we cannot become the inheritors of paradise, and even then we cannot save ourselves from the fire of hell without the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do never be fooled and never be deceived in thinking that you are worthy of the Jannah of Allah because of the good deeds that you offer the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi. Because of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself is saying, the hadith of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَن يُنْجِيَ أَحَدٌ مِّنْكُمْ أَمَلُهُ. There is not a single human being whose deeds will save him from the fire of hell and will give him najat and entry into paradise. Not a single human being that will enter paradise or is worthy of entering paradise because of the good deeds that he performs. So the Sahaba were shocked to hear this. So they asked, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wala anta? Even you are not worthy of paradise because of your deeds? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, wala ana, even me, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, illa an yataghammadani Allah bi rahmatih. Till Allah doesn't cover me and take me in His mercy, I, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, cannot enter paradise. Who is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my young friends? What is the status of our beloved Nabi? You know, if you want to sum up the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he was second to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After Allah is the maqam and the daraja and the status of my beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sayyidul awwaleen wal akhareen, the leader of the former, the leader of the latter. Sayyidu wuldi Adam yawm al-qiyamati wala fakhra, the leader of the whole of mankind on the day of judgment. Wa biyadi liwa'ul hamdi wala fakhra, the banner of praise will be in the hand of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ma min nabiyyin yawma izin Adam faman siwa illa tahta liwa'i. Every prophet from Adam, including Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, will be under the banner of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And awwalu shafi'in wa awwalu mushaffa, he will be the first to intercede and the first whose intercession will be accepted. My young friends, that Nabi of Allah, that in spite of all this, he would spend hours and hours on end standing before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in prayer. So much so that the blessed feet of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would begin to swell, and the Sahaba would pity him, and they would say to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, why do you exert yourself when you are second to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. When you are free and pure from sin, why do you exert yourself? Look at your feet sweating. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, Afala akun abdan shakura, should I not be a grateful slave? That very Nabi of Allah who would spend the days in starvation and he would spend the nights in prostration, and he did this day in, day out till he met the Almighty Allah. If Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, I, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, cannot enter paradise without the mercy of Allah, then where are you and I ever going to enter paradise because of our deeds? Sayyidina Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu has related a very beautiful hadith. Hafiz al-Munziri has recorded it in his book Targhib wa Tarhib, emphasizing and explaining this. He said, خرج علينا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. On one occasion, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to us, and our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, خرج من عندي خليل جبرائيل آنفا, that my friend Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam has just left. And Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam said to me, كَإِنَّ لِلَّهِ عَبْدًا مِنْ عِبَادِهِ أَبَدَ اللَّهِ 500 سنة على رأس جبل في البحر طوله وأرضه 30 ذراع في 30 ذراع والبحر محيط به 4000 فرسخ من كل ناحية. He said that in the nations before you there was a servant of Allah. An obedient servant of Allah. So obedient this servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was, that he spent 500 years of his life worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 500 years of his life. Do you want to make an announcement, Rana? Don't worry guys, I'm used to this.
Can everyone please remember not to park in inappropriate places? We have a car here, blue Vauxhall Corsa, registration SD51KNR. Blue Vauxhall Corsa, SD51KNR. Please can you remove your vehicle as soon as possible?
500 years of his life he spent in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the dedication, my young friends. This is what you call commitment. This is what you call dedication. This is what you call obedience. This is what you call love. And if you want to truly comprehend the nature of this sacrifice of this servant of Allah, then I would suggest that each and every one of us looks at his own self. Look at our dedication. Look at our commitment. Look at our zeal. Look at our passion. Never mind 500 years. Never mind 1 year. Let's talk about 1 day. Let's talk about 1 day. In this day and age, my young friends, how many people will you find in this day and age that in the life that Allah has given them so far and the life that they've lived so far, how many will you find in this day and age that could not even offer their 5 daily prayers for 1 day? How many will you find in this day and age, never mind the 1 day and never mind the 5 daily prayers, 1 Jumu'ah once a week? But it would not be an exaggeration to say, my young friends, there are many in this day and age, never mind the Jummah once a week, we only offer Eid prayer twice a year, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. There are Muslims in this day and age that struggle to get to the Masjid even on the day of Eid. Bearing this in mind, look at the commitment and dedication of this individual. Look at the consistency. 500 years of his life and he spent in prostration before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Consistency is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. Why? This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in one hadith said, إِنَّ أَحَبَّ الْأَعْمَالِ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. Why? Because the element of sacrifice is far greater. Every day you're fighting your nafs to do that good deed. Whereas when we get this Sufi vibe, what tends to happen is you stay as Sufi for a day or two and after that it's history. It's very, very difficult to come in every day, because every day you're fighting with the shaitan, every day you're fighting with your nafs, and every day you're sending a gift to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves consistency. So look at the consistency. 500 years of worship. Now look at the sincerity of this worship. He's on an island, hundreds of miles away from land, this individual. And on this island, my young friends, he's residing on the peak of a mountain. This is where he stayed for 500 years. And he spent 500 years worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such sincerity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken care of him. How? وَأَخْرَجَ لَهُ عَيْنًا عَذْبًا. At the bottom of the mountain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken out a sweet spring from which he would drink his sweet water. وَشَجَرَةُ رُمَّانٍ تُخْرِجْ لَهُ فِي كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ رُمَّانًا. And a pomegranate tree. Every night this tree would give him 1 pomegranate. يَتَعَبَّدْ يَوْمًا. This was his ma'mul. This was his daily routine. The hadith states, يَتَعَبَّدْ يَوْمًا فَإِذَا أَمْسَى نَزَلْ فَأَصَابَ مِنَ الْوُضُوء وأخذ تلك الرمانة فأكلها ثم قام لصلاته. The entire day he would spend in worship. Come the evening, now he would come down the mountain, he would descend. He would come to the sweet water, he would drink, and he would renew his wudu. He would perform wudu. He would eat the pomegranate. And after this short break, my young friends, he would return and he would stand before the Almighty Allah in prayer. Every day, day in, day out, night in, night out, for 500 years of his life. Where will you find an example like this? And you know what? When he was on the point of death, he asked Allah subhanahu, he prayed to Allah. فَسَأَلَ رَبَّهُ إِنَّ وَقْتِ الْأَجَلِ أَنْ يَقْبِضَهُ سَاجِدًا وَأَنْ لَا يَجْعَلَ لِلْأَرْضِ وَلَا لِشَيْءٍ يُفْسِدُ عَلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا حَتَّى يَبْعَثَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَاجِدًا. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for two things at the time of death. He said, "Oh Allah, I beg you, to the best of my ability, I've spent my entire life trying to worship you. Oh Allah, I beg you, make it so that when you take my soul and you send the angel to take my soul, oh Allah, I beg you, send the angel to take my soul whilst I'm prostrating before you." That was his first request. His second request, oh Allah, make it so that the earth doesn't eat my flesh, so that when I'm raised on the day of judgment in the state of prostration. The Arhamur Rahimin, the Akramul Akramin, the Ajwadul Ajwadeen answered his prayer. And he died in the state of prostration. You will die as you lived, and you will be resurrected like you died. Hadith of Rasulullah. You know, if you're whining and dining throughout your life, taking a spliff, it'd be foolish for you and I to think that we're going to die in the state of prostration. If this is how you spend your life, then you know what? The chances are that you'll die whilst taking a spliff. So he died in the state of prostration. Sayyidina Jibreel says, فَنَحْنُ نَمُرُّ عَلَيْهِ إِذَا حَبَطْنَ وَإِذَا أَرَجْنَ. We pass by him. Every time we come and every time we ascend or descend, we pass by this individual. He said, on the day of judgment, فَنَجِدْ لَهُ فِي الْعِلْمِ. With regards to this individual, it is written in the preserved tablet, أَنَّهُ يُوقَفْ بَيْنَ يَدَيِ اللَّهِ. That when everyone is resurrected, he will be resurrected and he will stand before the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the angels, أَدْخِلُوا عَبْدِي الْجَنَّةَ بِرَحْمَتِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order the angels, okay, my angels, this was an obedient servant. He was good. He spent his days and his nights worshipping me. O angels, take this servant of mine with my mercy and take him to paradise. Now, my young friends, when he hears these words of Allah, أَدْخِلُوا عَبْدِي الْجَنَّةَ بِرَحْمَتِي, take my servant to paradise with my mercy, he's going to think something's gone wrong here. What's this? What's Allah saying? Take my servant to paradise with my mercy? What's happening here? Bal bi amali, wallah, with your mercy you're sending me today to paradise with your mercy? No way. I ain't going. Bal bi amali, I'm worthy of paradise because of the deeds that I performed in the dunya. 500 years I was slaving away and worshipping you by day and by night. And today, when the crunch has come for payday, you're saying that go to paradise with my mercy? No way. But I'm worthy of it because of my deeds. And he'll stand there. Allah is the Halim. Look how tolerant Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. My young friend, doesn't it cross your mind? We wrong Him by day and we wrong Him by night. And this is every day. Look at the tolerance of Allah. And in spite of that, we wrong Him by day and we wrong Him by night. He showers us with His blessings and He doesn't hold us to account whilst we're still in the dunya. And if it was just one or two guys, it'd be understandable. There are over few billion on this dunya at this moment in time. Out of the few billion, there are only 1 billion that believe. So there's about 4 billion that don't even believe in Him. And out of the 1 billion that believe, how many actually worship Him? Halim, tolerance. So when this servant of Allah turns around and says, "Nahi bhai, I'm worthy of paradise because of my deeds," Allah will say to the angels, "Bye, forget this guy, he doesn't know what he's on about. Adkhilu abdi al-jannata bi rahmati." Take him to paradise. Take him. But this guy's a wise guy. No, I ain't going. Stubborn. Bal bi amali. Well, I ain't going anywhere till you don't say that I'm worthy of paradise because of my deeds. I ain't going. It'll happen again. He won't go. TK bhai. Okay. Come here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will now say, قَايِسُ عَبْدِي بِنِعْمَتِي عَلَيْهِ وَبِأَمَلِهِ. Let's take hisab. Let's take hisab. You know what hisab is? My young friends, and this is exactly how it's going to happen. You're going to come one by one. And Allah will say, go, go. Meaning paradise. Go, go, yeah, go, yeah, go, go. Stop. Come here. Let's have a look. Whoever Allah stops, finished. Whoever Allah stops and takes a look at his Nami Amal, his record of deeds, and if Allah questions, then my friend, to sum it up in a nutshell, your history. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him as well, go to paradise, go to paradise. Wise guy, let's give him the wise treatment. Some people don't understand. Do they? Some people, my young friends, are such that you can explain again and again and again, but they will never understand. You know that they get one crack, automatically they understand everything. Isn't it? It happens to us many times. Let me give you an example. Parking where you should be parking. Yeah? Let's say for example here now, if there was a policeman outside and he issued a fine, all of a sudden everyone understands. Isn't it? So some people, they just work very different. So Allah said, okay, TK bhai, let's see in comparison to the blessings that I gave you in the dunya, in comparison to those blessings, how many good deeds did you actually do? It's important, my young friends, that we value the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. Because Allah's blessing, my young friends, are countless. You know, if we were to spend our entire life just counting Allah's blessings, and the reason I mention this, because in a country like this, you know, people like yourself and me, especially me, we have taken Allah's blessings for granted. We have no qadr, we have no value. Why? Because Allah keeps on giving. We don't have to ask, we don't have to beg, and Allah keeps on giving. Let me ask you, when was the last time you had to ever ask Allah for your next meal? Has there ever been a day in your life where you have had to raise your hands and say, "Oh Allah, oh Allah, I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I beg you, make intizam for my next meal." There are millions of people out there at this moment in time that beg Allah for the next morsel. They don't know where the next morsel is going to come from. And they beg Allah, "Oh Allah, I beg you, we have nothing. We've tried everything. There is no power within the universe that can help us other than yourself. I beg you, give me a morsel so I can feed myself and I can feed my children. If Allah ever took one blessing away, like I said, sometimes you need the wise treatment, and when you get the wise treatment, everyone comprehends. But if Allah were to take one blessing away, we would realize the value of the blessings of Allah. You're looking at me, I'm looking at you. I'm delivering this reminder, you're listening to this reminder. And you know what? All of a sudden, as you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, you realize that you can't see me anymore. Within a zillionth of a second, your situation has changed. You can't see me anymore. Thoughts are crossing your mind. Maybe my eyes have gone blurred, so you begin to rub your eyes. But no, darkness prevails in front of you. You look to the right, and there's darkness. You're looking to the left, there's darkness. There's darkness all around. Within a zillionth of a second, from a totally independent person, you've become a dependent one. And I swear by Allah, if you possessed $1 billion and eyesight was available on the market, you would spend that $1 billion to purchase yourself a pair of eyes. This is the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will play the same game. Let's see in comparison to the blessings that I give you in the dunya, how much did you actually do? And what will be taken? His eyes. Allah will take away his eyes, and now he cannot see. And he's worried and he's parishan. And he'll want his eyes back. So Allah, give me back my eyes. Go get your own eyes. Go wherever you want. Ask whoever you want. Get yourself a pair of eyes. Where is he going to go? Who is he going to ask? There's only one being he can ask. Wallah, I beg you, give me my eyes. Allah will say, "Theek hai bhai, what will you give me?" What can he offer? What has he got to offer? 500 years of worship. That is the currency on that day. Worship. "Theek hai bhai, a pair of eyes, what will you give?" So he will say, "I'll give you 1 year of worship." 1 year of worship, yeah. 1 year of worship for a pair of eyes? Not interested. Well, okay. I'll give you 5 years of worship. 5 years? This is not more reason to shove up more reasons. There's no such thing. 10 years of worship? Allah's not interested. 50 years of worship? Allah's not interested. He'll keep on increasing. 100 years of worship? 500 years of worship? Now you're talking. You want a pair of eyes? Give me 500 years of worship. And he will give 500 years of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his eyes. That is just one blessing of Allah. Allah hasn't taken hisab for anything else. The ears, the nose, the mouth, the hands, the feet. All the other blessings that Allah gave him, the hisab is done. He has nothing to offer. Allah will order the angels, take him and throw him inside hell. Finished. Take him and throw him inside hell. And the angels will come and take him. And as the angels are taking him towards the hell, I told you, okay, wise guys, when they get the wise treatment, everything falls, everything makes sense. So now, everything makes sense, he's going to hell. And he'll beg Allah, as the angels are taking him to Jahannam, he'll call out, "Rabbi bi rahmatik adkhilni al-jannah." Oh Allah, I beg you, and I beg you again, and again, and again, give me Jannah with your mercy and your kindness. He'll call out to Allah, Arhamur Rahimeen, Akramul Akrameen, Ajwadul Ajwadeen. And in spite of this whole dialogue, conversation, the Arhamur Rahimeen will order the angel to bring him back. And he will stand before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to him, tell me, Ya Abdi, man khalaqak wa lam taku shay'ah. You said you worshipped me for 500 years. Tell me, who created you? You had no wujud. You had no existence. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. You were not even worthy of mention. Who created you? Who gave you wujud and existence? Who took you out from your mother's stomach and placed you on the dunya? Who gave you these faculties of eyes and ears and nose? He will turn around and say, Anta ya Rab. Wallah, you were the one that created me. You were the one that gave me existence. You were the one that took me out from my mother's stomach. Allah will ask, Man kawaka li'ibadati 500 sana. Who gave you the strength to worship me for 500 years? People become old and weak. They can barely walk, never mind prostrating before me. Yet you prostrated for 500 years. Who gave you the strength to do this? He'll turn around and say, Anta ya Rab. Wallah, you were the one that gave me strength. Allah will ask, Man anzalaka fi jablin wasti lujja. You were on an island all alone, hundreds of miles away from land. Who placed you on this island? You couldn't get there by yourself. He will say to you, Allah, you were the one that had mercy upon me and placed me and given me the tawfiq to do this good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask, who gave you sweet water to drink? Yet all around you there was salty water. He will turn around and say, Allah, you were the one that gave me sweet water to drink. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask, who gave you a pomegranate every night? Yet this tree only bears fruit. Once a year, you were receiving a pomegranate. Twice every day, it was bearing fruit twice a year. Who gave you this? He will turn around and say, Allah, you gave me this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, فَذَلِكَ بِرَحْمَتِي وَبِرَحْمَتِي أُدْخِلُكَ الْجَنَّةِ. All that was with my mercy and kindness, and today you will enter Jannah with my mercy and my kindness. And you will be given paradise. Every one of us are in need of this mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And believe me, my young friends, Allah has a lot of this commodity called mercy. All the mercy that you see in the dunya, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna lillahi mi'ata rahmah. The mercy of Allah has 100 parts. Everything that you see in the dunya that is of a merciful aspect, whether it's human beings loving one another, whether it's human beings caring for one another, whether it's human beings helping one another, whether it's human beings embracing one another, whether it's human beings giving gifts to one another, whether it's the animals and the creepy crawly and the creatures and the jinn showing mercy and compassion to one another. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, everything within the universe that is of a merciful aspect is as a result of that one mercy that Allah has placed in the dunya. 99 parts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reserved for the day of judgment. 99 parts. And on the day of judgment, you will see the true nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Let me just give you 2 examples and I will conclude. 1. Hafiz ibn Rajab al-Hanbali has related a tradition. He relates that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take out 2 people from the fire of hell. They will come and they will stand before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will speak with them, Allah will question them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order the angels to take them back to Jahannam. Now one of them, my young friends, when Allah orders the angel to take them back to Jahannam, one of them, after every few steps, he'll look back. He'll look over his shoulder. Every few steps, as the angels are taking him to Jahannam, he looks back. Whereas the other guy, this guy, my young friends, will even make Usain Bolt look silly on that day. You think that guy is fast, supersonic, 100 miles, or is it 100 meters? This guy will make Usain Bolt look silly. And he'll run towards Jahannam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call them back again. The angels bring them back. They will stand before the Almighty Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask the one that kept on looking over his shoulder. Allah will say, okay, I sent you to Jahannam, why were you looking back? Every second, third step, you were looking back. he will turn round to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, "O Allah, I heard a lot about you in the dunya. O Allah, I may not have done what you said, but I heard a lot about your mercy, your compassion, and your love. And I thought that once you've taken me out from Jahannam, O Allah, you, my master, will never ever send me back again. And when you order that we be taken to Jahannam for a second time, O Allah, every time I took a step, I look back, okay, maybe now you will have mercy upon me and you will forgive me. So in hope, maybe now you will change your mind. Maybe now you will change your mind. Maybe now you will change your mind. I kept on looking, waiting for you to change your mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask the other, what's the catch with you? You're breaking records today. Yeah? He'll turn around and say, Allah, you know what? In the dunya, I never ever acted upon any one of your commands. And today, you ordered that I be taken to Jahannam. So I thought, let this command of yours be the first command that I'm ever acting upon. And to act upon that command of Allah, I run towards Jahannam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmat will come into Josh. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, go by, both of you. You've been forgiven. Your abode is paradise. In another tradition, and I want you to picture this in your mind's eye. And as I relate it, I want you to think as if you're that individual. Because that's the way it's going to have maximum impact. A person will be called on the plane of resurrection. And his deeds will be weighed. And he's going to realize, my young friends, that he is one deed short to enter paradise. Plane of resurrection, his deeds have been weighed, and what is the outcome? One deed. He needs one deed to go into paradise. Because he doesn't have that one deed, Allah will order the angels to take him to Jahannam. Words cannot describe the feeling, the grief, the sadness, the remorse. He will be killing himself. One deed. Can you imagine? Look at it in football terms. World Cup final. Last minute. Last few seconds. Last kick of the game. It's a draw. You've kicked the ball and it stops on the line. And the ref blows. It's all over. So close, yet you're millions of miles away. You're there, but you're not there. When you lose a game by 50 goals, you live by it. But when it's so close, words can't express the grief and the sadness. So he will come on that day and he'll realize that he's one deed short. Which day? يُبْعَثَ النَّاسِ خُفَاتًا عُرَاةً غُرْلًا. When everybody will be raised barefooted, everyone will be barefooted. Everyone will be naked. And everyone will be uncircumcised. كَمَا بَدَانَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ نُعِيدُ وَعْدًا عَلَيْنَا إِنَّا كُنَّا فَاعِلِينَ. So everyone barefooted, naked, and circumcised. And you will not look at the satar of one another. لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِي. If there was a fire inside your house, would you be bothered what clothes you had on? Because if you did, you'd be dead. Isn't that so? So on that day, everyone will have enough on his mind which will make him careless of others. You will not look at the satar of anyone. This will be your condition. And أَجْوَأْ مَا كَانُوا كَتُّ أَزْمَأْ مَا كَانُوا أَنْسَبْ مَا كَانُوا. You will be hungry like never before. Bellies will be burnt with hunger. Thirsty like never before, and tired like never before. And you will come on the plane of resurrection. Every human being, animal kind, jinn kind, bird kind, shayateen, standing together, intermingled. Man next to shaitan, shaitan next to beast. And you be standing so close together, كَإِنَّ الْأَقْدَامِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مِثْلُ النَّبْلِ فِي الْقَرْنِ, that arrows, that human beings will be like arrows in a pouch. Arrows which are stuffed in one pouch, all on top of one another. This is how you will be. And Rasulullah ﷺ said, fortunate will be that person who can actually find place on the plane of resurrection just to put his feet straight. He'll be the fortunate one. The sun above your heads. How above your head? 1 meal. 1 mile. And some actually say a meal here is referring to, when you apply surma in your eyes, kuhl. The actual needle that you use to apply surma in your eyes, this is what it's referring to. So basically, this is how far the sun will be above your heads. Flat plane, and you will begin to sweat. And the heat of the sun won't be like it is today. وَيُزَادُ فِي حَرِّيَةٍ 99 ضِعْفًا, 99 times more hotter than it is at this moment in time. And above your heads. And you will sweat according to sin. There will be people in sweat up to their ankles. Yeah? The remarkable thing is, the guy next to him will be in sweat up to his neck. The guy next to him may be in sweat up to his knees. So everybody will be in sweat according to the sins that he committed. And then the doors of hell will be opened on the plane of resurrection. فَتَحُبُّ عَلَيْهِمْ رِيَاحُهَا وَسَمُومُهَا, and the hot air will blow on their faces. And the smell on the plane of resurrection. When a little mouse is to die in our house, look at the smell. You can't tolerate it. And here on the plane of resurrection, the worst cope ever found on the dunya, the smell will be worse than that millions of times. And you will suffer so much that tears of blood will flow from your eyes. And you will suffer so much that you will begin to utter nonsense. What nonsense am I referring to? You will begin to say, Ya Rabbi irsaluka bi ila an-nar ahwan alayya mimma ajid. You will say, oh Allah, just send me to Jahannam. Send me to Jahannam. I can't tolerate this. Jahannam is easier than what I'm experiencing here. What would he know what Jahannam is? Jahannam is eternal. The day of judgment, the punishment is not eternal. But because of the suffering, he will think that if he goes to Jahannam, he will be relieved of the suffering of the plane of resurrection. So to get out of that suffering, he says, oh Allah, just send me to Jahannam. I can't tolerate this. And this is the day, my young friends, when this individual will come. And everyone, I want you to think that you are that individual. So you come. The balance will be there. Balance. What's the balance? A scale. It's a creation of Allah so big that the balance will have 2 scales. Just like any other balance. This creation of Allah is so big that Imam Qurtubi says, the 7 heavens and the 7 earths can fit in 1 scale of that balance. And you will come and you will see Jahannam to your left, and you will see Jannah to your right. To your left, the fire of hell, and to your right will be Jahannam. And you'll be called, Abdullah, come, it's your turn. You will stand. Your good deeds in one part of the balance. Your bad deeds in the second part of the balance. And you're standing there. And you've been there on the plane of resurrection. Because you know the plane of resurrection, my friends, is one day. But how long is that one day? مِقْدَارُهُ 50,000 sana. 50,000 years. And you've been witnessing what's happening before you. Because you're not the first to go there. And as the deeds have been placed, you know what happens on a scale, don't you? Like this. Especially when it's close. Because obviously the difference is of one deed. So you're watching it. And soon as your bad deeds outweigh your good by one, your jaws will drop. Because you can see Jahannam and you can see Jannat. And you're on that plane of resurrection. You just don't know what to do. You are so close to paradise, but still you are so far. The reason I wanted everyone to just think that he's the individual, because the point that I'm going to make now, this is the reason. Have you understood the value of good deeds? And have you understood the evil and the consequence of sin? Let me give you a magic portion here, a formula that will help you throughout your life. You know, next time you commit sin, or you intend to commit sin, all I want you to do is remind yourself of this narration that I'm narrating. And think, you know what? The sin that you're about to commit, maybe this is the one that may take you to Jahannam. Maybe this is the one that you could have done without on that day. And next time you're intending to do good and you don't do it. You're walking on the street, you've seen a banana on the floor. You could so easily, if you want, pick it up and put it into the bin. But you know what? You think, yeah, I'm forgetting what time. You know, the next time that thought crosses your mind, you think, I haven't got time for it. I want you to think and remind yourself, you know what? Maybe that is the one that you're going to need on the plane of resurrection. And now, you know, when he's standing there and he realizes this is his outcome, and his outcome is Jahannam, there's no words in my walk-up that can describe his feeling. But Allah is Arhamur Rahimin, Akramul Akramin, Ajwadul Ajwadeen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, "Theek hai bhai, no problems. Let me give you another chance. Go on. Plane of resurrection. Go see if you can find a deed. If you find that one deed, I'll give you paradise." Relief. Now he's on the plane of resurrection and there are millions of people there. And all he needs, my young friends, is one deed. That's all he needs. One deed, and paradise, here I come. Now who do you think he will go to? Ammiji. He'll remember? Ammiji, his mother. You know, the same woman that gave him birth, that would embrace him, that would kiss him, that would love him, that would look after him, that would change his nappies, that would feed him, that would stay awake during the nights just to watch over him when he was ill, that would give him medication and medicine. The woman that was prepared to sacrifice her life for him. He'll remember, and he'll come to his mother and he will begin to beg. Have you seen like children beg when they want something desperate, how they plead and plead and plead? And he will plead with his mother and he will beg you, "Oh Ma, I've just had my deeds weighed. Oh Ma, I'm so close in getting to paradise, but oh Ma, I'm one deed short. I beg you, give me one deed. Oh Ma, in the dunya, you gave me everything. You gave me more than whatever I asked for. Oh Ma, I beg you, help me today and just give me one deed so I can give to Allah and go to paradise. He's going to realize, my young friend, that this mother of his is a completely different person. She's not interested. She's not even listening to him. She's in a world of her own. She's parishan. And she will turn him away. I can't help you, my son. There's nothing that I can do for you. And he will come to his father, the same guy that used to work day and night and overtime just so that he could give his son the things that he didn't receive. And he will beg him, Ki Abba, I beg you, give me one deed. And his father will turn him away. He will come to his wife and she will turn him away. He will come to his own flesh and blood, his children. One by one they will turn him away. My friends, he has been to every single person that he could, in whom he had hoped that he would receive something, and every single person will have turned him away. Is this not what the Quran says? What does the Quran say? يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. Everyone will run away from you. Never mind run. Allah clearly says in the Quran, فَلَا أَنْصَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. There will be no relationship between any of them. There will be no relationship between father and son, and there will be no relationship between mother and daughter. Never mind the relationship, my young friend. The Quran says, and listen very carefully to the Quran, don't wreck your lives for the sake of your friends, for the sake of your children, by doing haram, just to provide for them. Look at what the Quran is saying. The Quran is saying on that day, يَوَدُّ الْمُجْرِمِ لو يفتدي من عذاب يومئذ ببنيه وصاحبته وأخيه وفصيلته التي تؤوي ومن في الأرض جميعا ثم ينجي كلا إنها لظى نزاعة للشوى. The guilty on that day will say, oh Allah, take my son in ransom, punish him, let me go free. Oh Allah, take my mother and father in ransom. Oh Allah, take my whole family in ransom. Oh Allah, take everyone within the dunya in ransom. I beg you, don't punish me, punish them. This is what they will say. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, never mind them offering the entire family. Allah says, فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمْ مِلْءُ الْأَرْضِ ذَهَبٌ وَلَوْ اِفْتَدَى بِهِ. If you came on that day and you offered an earth full of gold, you were rich enough, you offered an earth full of gold and you took it to Allah and said, oh Allah, I beg you, take this earth full of gold in ransom, but don't punish me. My friends, on that day, not even an earth full of gold will be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, my friends, he's been to his mother, his father, everyone, they've all turned him down, and he's going to be sitting, crying, tears of blood are flowing, in a manner, feeling a feeling which, the human mind cannot comprehend. Losing all hope that, Allah gave me a second chance, and there is not a single guy on the plane of resurrection that is prepared to give me one deed. How do you think he will feel? You can see Jahannam. The punishment of Jahannam for the kuffar is eternal. And believe me, the punishment of Jahannam for certain sins will run into thousands and thousands of years. And he's sitting there, lost all hope, when all of a sudden Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send a man in his direction. And the man will see him in this condition. So he'll cross his mind, let me just ask him, maybe he'll help. He will ask him, and this individual will give him that one deed. He will give him that one deed. Can you imagine the smile on his face when he will receive that one deed? No words can describe it. You know when your 6 numbers come up, which 6 numbers am I talking about? Exactly. Yeah. And you know today, mashallah, you've won £1 billion. Words can't describe that smile. But okay, you'll become insane and start jumping like a orangutan. Yeah? This is the lottery ticket for him. He's got himself a deed. And as soon as he receives it, he will rush to Allah in case Allah changes his mind and say, oh Allah, you asked me to bring a deed. Oh Allah, here, I beg you, give me paradise now. I beg you, give me paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. He's been watching it. I'll say, come here. Where have you got this deed from today? Your mother turned you down. Your father turned you down. Where have you got this deed from? And he'll make a mention of his, new friend, his yar. Zaid. Wallah, Zaid. I met Zaid. I asked him and Zaid wasn't hesitant. He gave me. And I said, go on, go bring your new friend. Go bring Zaid. Let's see what, let's have a chat with Zaid. So he'll bring his new friend to Allah, introduce him. Allah, this is the guy. This is Zaid. He gave me a deed. Allah will ask, what's the catch with you? Yeah. His mum turned him down. His father turned him down. And you've just given him a deed. What's the score? He'll turn around to say, Wallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Wallah, I've been on the plane of resurrection. I've been watching what's been happening. Wallah, I only ever did one good deed in the dunya. I've been on the plane of resurrection and I've been watching while hisab has been taking place. And there were people who had good deeds as big as mountains. But when they stood before you, they ended up in Jahannam. When you took hisab, and when you held them to account, oh Allah, their deeds, even though they reach mountains, they come to an end. When I saw their outcome, I knew what my outcome was going to be. But Allah, when I saw him on the plane of resurrection in this halat which, the human mind cannot even comprehend and describe, crying, needing one good deed, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to Jahannam anyway. Let me help him at least. Let me give him this deed. Let me make his day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, you are more merciful than me? I am the Arhamul Rahimeen, the Akramul Akrameen, the Ajwadul Ajwadeen. Go. Zaid, you go to paradise and take your friend to paradise. Both of you go. Final hadith, and on this I'll conclude. Hadith of Abdullah bin Umar. Allah will gather another believer, make him close to him. This one, Allah will screen him. Meaning that the rest of the people on the plane of resurrection will not know what is going on between him and Allah. Allah will screen him as to not to humiliate him and disgrace him in front of all the masses. Allah will make him come close, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him confess his sins. Ata'rifu dhanba kadha, do you recognize this sin? Do you recognize this sin? And you know what, my young friends? He'll have no choice but to confess. Why? وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا. Simple. Your Lord doesn't forget. Such is the knowledge of your Lord. What does Sayyidina Luqman say to his son? يَا بُنَيَّ إِنَّهَا إِن تَكُ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّنْ خَرْدَلٍ أَتَيْنَا بِهَا. Even if there is something equal to the weight of a mustard seed, فَتَكُنْ فِي صَخْرَةٍ, if this is inside some rock or anywhere within the universe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring it on that day. So you can't deny. Unless you try to deny and say, okay, nay. Oh Allah, no, I didn't commit this sin. Yeah? You say, no, I didn't do it. And you're adamant and you stay firm. No, I didn't do it. Prove it to me. What do you think will happen? Let me tell you. يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك كلا بل تكذبون بالدين وإن عليكم لحافظين كراما كاتبين. You deny, the angels will bear witness. Okay, this guy's a wise guy, the angels are lying. I believe in it. Okay, no problem. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها Imam Sahib read إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها. The earth will begin to speak. The earth will begin to relate its information because Allah will inspire it to do so. So the very place that you sinned, that portion of earth will begin to speak. You still deny? What better than witnesses from your own body? You still deny? يوم تشهد عليهم ألسنتهم وأيديهم وأرجلهم بما كانوا يعملون. Then you're going to get a shock, my friend. Because your hands will begin to speak. Your feet will begin to speak. And your limbs will begin to speak. So you will have no choice. And you will confess. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, can you remember? What day is it today, boys? Come on, even I know it's a Saturday. Date? 24. Can you remember? Friday the 23rd of October 2012. 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. Your mother and father were sleeping. You were also pretending to sleep. And when you realize that your mother and father have gone to sleep, you took out your bad boy gear, whacked it on, your bad boy boots, your bad boy shirt, flicked your hair back, looking good. You sneaked down the stairs, you opened the door, your mates were waiting out there in their bad boy car, you left the door open, and you went to the nightclub. And you were doing the turns and you were on fire. And you did what you had to do, and you returned 4 o'clock in the morning. You left the door open and you sneaked upstairs and pretend everything was good in the hood, and you went back to sleep as if you never went out. Can you remember that, Abdullah? You begin to sweat. Yeah, Allah said it as exactly like the way I did it. Okay. Next. Can you remember? 25th of October. 9 o'clock when you were supposed to be in school or college. You ended up in Blackpool. Guess with who? Jemima. And you spent the entire day on Blackpool Beach telling her how much you loved her. And you came back home in the evening and you told your dad that you had detention. Or you had an extra class. He's thinking, you know what? Allah's got that right as well. Yeah, my God. One by one, Allah will make a mention of his sins. And inside his heart he's thinking, my God, he knows this, he's mentioned this, he's mentioned this. I'm going. In his heart he will be thinking, you know what? Forget it. I'm history. I'm a goner. أنه قد رأى في نفسه قد حلق, that he's finished. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, and you can imagine him standing before Allah, how much pressure. Do you understand? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn around and says to him, you know what? Whilst you were in the dunya, these sins that you committed, I kept them hidden. Your mother didn't know about them, your father didn't know about them. I kept them hidden in the dunya, and today I'm going to forgive every one of them. Go. Take your Nami Amal and go to paradise. And on this note I will conclude. The Akramul Akrameen, the Ajwadul Ajwadeen, the Arhamul Rahimin. My friends, he's waiting for you, for me, to turn to him. Whenever you decide to turn to Him, this is entirely your decision. Whenever you decide to turn to Him, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's in 5 years' time, whether it's in 10 years' time, your decision. But you know, the wise guy is that individual who will turn now. Why? You might not be here tomorrow. I might not be here tomorrow. You know, at this moment in time, there's plenty of people popping, one by one, and the young people, heart attacks, very common, fit as fiddles, serious. Every second, third day I hear of some individual, some young guy, his heart's popped, he's gone, history, it's gone, it's too late. This is why, my young friend, the wise one is he who now, in this gathering, makes tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ki Allah, I beg you, overlook the wrongs that I've done, and oh Allah, I want to turn to you, I want to embrace you, I beg you, overlook all my sins. I swear by Allah, if you are sincere in your repentance, irrespective of how you've lived your past life, you could have sinned for every second of the day in your past life. But if you turn to Him now and you beg for His forgiveness, then the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will embrace you. What more can we ask for? And for how long is Allah prepared to do this? My young friends, till your last breath. Till your last breath, before death. You can keep on turning to Him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep on embracing you. But you know, at the end of the day, it's all about understanding. I mean, let me ask you, what part of what I've said today that you have not understood? Is there anything that I've said today that you've not understood? I don't think so. But you know, at the end of the day, it's as simple as this. You've understood what I've said. You believe what I've said. You know it's the right thing. Then I ask, why won't you turn to it and why won't you embrace it? How can you lose out? You can't. You know, and after this, if you still don't turn to Allah, then I just raise my hands. And we've got no one to blame other than ourselves. Allah give me the tawfiq. Allah give me the understanding. Allah give me the tawfiq to first act upon what I say. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the tawfiq. Blessed days. You know, today now is the 11th of Muharram. 10th of Muharram was the day in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rescued the likes of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. Let this be a blessed day in which Allah rescues us from the fire of hell. Sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم لك الحمد كله، رب لك الشكر كله، اللهم لك الحمد في الأولى والآخرة، اللهم لك الحمد ما دامت السماوات والأرض، اللهم لك الحمد بعد ذلك، اللهم لك الحمد حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه مباركا عليه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. اللهم صل على محمد صلاة تنجينا بها من جميع الأحوال والآفات وتقضي لنا بها جميع الحاجات وتطهرنا بها من جميع السيئات وترفعنا بها عندك على درجات وتبلغنا بأقصى الغايات من جميع الخيرات في الحياة وبعد الممات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم نكنا من الخطايا كما ينقى الثوب العبيد من الدنس. اللهم باعد بيننا بين خطايانا كما باعد بين المشرق والمغرب. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا الا غفرته ولا هما الا فرجته ولا ميتا الا رحمته ولا مريضا الا شفيته ولا مرضا الا عافيته ولا كافرا الا هديته ولا جاهلا الا نصرته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا انك رضا منا قضيته ويسرته يا ارحم الراحمين يا اكرم الاكرمين يا اجود الاجودين يا بديع السماوات والارض يا ذا الجلال والإكرام لا إله إلا أنت يا ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك من حبيبك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك من حبيبك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأنت المستعان وليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سمعنا وأطعنا وليك المصير برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
السلام عليكم.